Welcome to Our Girl Relationships. We talk about the problems people face in their day-to-day lives. Let's start with the video. So, my fiance has met my parents only a couple of times, and every time it was a disaster. The thing is that my fiance was American through and through, while I belonged to an Asian family. Even though my parents became US citizens a long while ago and I was born and raised here, the traditional values of my parents' childhood are still with them, and they expect a certain level of mannerism from their kids. Even I have issues dealing with them sometimes, so it was expected that my fiance would find their cultural ways a little too toxic. I have grown up in that environment, even though I was exposed to the modern society, so I know that it wasn't anything personal, but it was hard for my fiance to understand why we can't hold hands or sit next to each other in front of my parents, or why we have to listen to my dad talk about my life like he owns it without retaliating. That's why every time we met my parents, it always ended up in either my parents annoying the heck out of my fiance or my fiance saying something that made my parents irk. It got so bad that my parents were even against our marriage, and I had to go to extreme lengths to convince them. But now that the wedding is finally happening, my fiance said that we cannot allow my parents to come. That was a really hurtful and shocking thing to hear, but instead of losing my cool, I tried to reason with her. But when she said that they are simply too toxic and will end up ruining our wedding, either by judging everything or simply commenting on our modern ways of forsaking traditions, I know that when Asian families are present, something is bound to happen. But how could I not invite my own parents to my wedding? I'm an only child, and it's not like I'm planning to have any more weddings in the future. No amount of discord among family should exempt them from coming. I tried very hard to argue this point with my fiance, but in the end, I just gave in. Maybe I'm a pushover, but I didn't have any energy left to argue, and it's not like I was sure my parents would behave. In the end, I thought it's better to just get everything over and throw a special dinner or something to celebrate with my parents. We also excluded her parents from the list as it was the least she could do to make the list even. We decided no parents will be present at the wedding. I thought that was the end of it, but when I found out that she had sent an invitation to all her siblings, she has 3 sisters and 2 brothers, and each of them was present at the wedding. No wonder she asked for a lot of invitations. I was in a sulky mood all day before the wedding and wasn't really taking part in the preparations. My suit was finally delivered after a few alterations, and I was supposed to confirm the cake order with the bakery, but I sent one of my fiance's siblings to check on the cake. I stayed in my room all day and only came out at night when my friends were having a last night toast for me as a bachelor. Both of my fiance's brothers were present there as they were staying the night at my place. When they saw how sulky I was looking, they asked me what was wrong and if I was having cold feet before the wedding. I told them it was nothing and that I was only thinking it would have been nice to have my parents with me for one of the most important days of my life. When they further asked why I did not invite them, they breathed out a heavy sigh. They said that their sister can be very high maintenance. Sometimes, but that doesn't mean she despises my parents. She is just looking out for me and doesn't want to take any chances. I had no choice but to politely smile at their explanation, but soon after I excused myself to go to sleep. The next day I got ready and decided to give up on negative thoughts. It was indeed a very important day for me, and there was no changing the guest list at the last moment. There was no point in being annoyed at my future wife, so I focused on the happy parts. I thought, as the wedding was going to be perfect without anything causing throwing a rock in the proceedings, I should also try to look the part of a happy groom. But I was so wrong. There's no such thing as a perfectly good thing or a perfect wedding. There are always those who ruin everything good. When the ceremony started and we were taking our vows, I noticed that one of the brothers from my fiance's side came forward with a woman. As the ceremony was about to be over, I ignored him and continued with my vows. As soon as the pastor announced us as husband and wife, we kissed and were about to turn around and celebrate the moment with our guests when the brother came forward. He actually pulled out a ring and proposed to the woman he was holding hands with. The guy didn't even let us get off the stage and totally stole our limelight. Both my fiance, well, wife at that point, and I were completely shocked. It was supposed to be our moment, and they totally stole it. The rest of the wedding and the reception was all about the new couple, and everyone was gathering around them to check out the ring and congratulate them. Only our friends were around us, and even they looked uncomfortable. The whole vibe got so weird that everyone ended up leaving early. My wedding was 2 days ago, and I'm still very pissed about it. My wife didn't let me invite my parents, my only family, to the wedding because they were supposedly toxic, and then proceeded to invite her siblings, who were nothing less than tactless jerks. I'm actually mad at her and haven't talked to her properly. A few hours ago, we had another row, and she screamed at me how I am the one who's ruining the start of our new lives. Now, AITA here for reacting the way I reacted? Do I not have a right to be pissed off at what happened? I read the replies of all the people who read my original post about my wedding and how my wife's siblings ruined it. I know a lot of you think I'm an a-hole, but seriously, what else could I have done? No matter what, I really love my wife, and even though it seems like it was a red flag that she was asking me to leave my family behind, she really did put up with a lot of my parents' messed up ideas of manners. She had to give up on how she liked to dress and had to wear clothes that didn't even expose her shoulders because it was okay to show legs but not upper body according to my culture. Even though she hated it, she did it so they'll accept her in the family. She hid all of her tattoos because of them and pretended to be someone she's not. I love her for the person she is, but I still asked her to do all those things and step out of her comfort zone because I thought it would be easier than fighting with my parents and getting disowned in the process. And no, I'm not exaggerating here. After everything she did, it wasn't really an unreasonable request for her to ask me not to invite my parents. If she did, and they saw her backless and bare dress, they'd definitely comment on it, and it'd ruin everyone's mood. As a bride, she was allowed to make her wedding day the happiest, and she took precautions so nothing could ruin it. As for me, I think I had the right to be pissed at what her family did at the wedding, but I was wrong to direct my anger that was for her family towards her. It was us against the world, and I made it between us. But as soon as I realized how wrong I was, I apologized properly to her and made it up to her. We are good now and have decided to focus on just us instead of whatever happened in the last few weeks. It's been a month since my last update, and my wife and I decided that it's high time we made it up to our respective parents for not inviting them to our wedding. The dinner that was planned for her family went smoothly, and they said it was our wedding and we were allowed to choose the guest list. They said that they have enough children to witness a bunch of weddings and just accepted us with open arms. I could not believe how chilled they were about the whole thing, because my parents are the complete opposite of them. The dinner with my parents was scheduled for this upcoming Sunday, and after meeting my wife's parents, I wanted to change a very basic thing of our relationship. I didn't want her to hide her true self from my parents anymore, and if they can't accept her the way she is, then I guess I'll just have to deal with it. I realized that the only thing that matters is our parents should love us. And if my parents are going to put conditions on that love, then I'll just have to give it up. I'll update here once we go and meet them. So the dinner with my parents just ended, and I was so happy that I came straight to Reddit to write this post. My wife was wearing a strapless dress, and when we came to the house, the first thing my parents noticed was her tattoos. As expected, they were baffled by them and were giving me death stares. I knew it was their way of telling me how bad my choices are. But I visibly shrugged to them, and they were taken aback because it was the first time I did anything even remotely rebellious. When we were all having dinner, I finally announced that I had something important to tell them. My wife signaled to me that I should wait until after the dinner, but I couldn't wait any longer. I told them that we got married a few weeks ago, and I didn't invite them because I didn't want them to judge my wife any more than they already do. My mom was the first one to gather her wits and scolded me for being shameful enough to not invite them. My father looked like he was going to hit me with the spoon he was holding. There was complete silence around the dinner table while I continued eating my food. I knew that any minute they were going to explode, but what I didn't expect was my dad to give me his blessing. When he finally said something, it was that if this was my choice and that the deed is already done, there's nothing they could do. He said that they raised me well enough, and if the person I chose is my wife, then they have no choice but to accept it no matter how different their opinions are. Yes, I didn't expect it to go this way. My mom is a little mad at me for not inviting her, and my dad did end up calling me an ungrateful git. But the mere fact that they are having tea with my wife right now goes a long way to tell that eventually they'll come to forgive us. YTA, man, if you really wanted your parents to be there, you should have stood your ground and laid it out as a point that can't be compromised on. You agreed with everything and even got married, so why take your anger out on your wife? EAH, I think this whole family is full of a-holes. Firstly, if you had a problem with each other's parents, you should have left them out of your lives from the beginning. Secondly, that brother was the biggest a-hole. I would have taken my anger out on him for ruining the wedding and not my wife. I'm a 16-year-old female, and my parents are not together. My brother Luke, 14, and I go back and forth between houses. My dad is a decent dad for the most part, but he dates all these women and insists she's the one every time. Honestly, when we were kids, Luke and I liked the first couple. Then it got old. He always insists she's the one. It's different this time. But they're usually gone in a year and a half max. Dad's been with Amanda for 6 to 8 months, I think. She has a daughter, Peggy, that's 10. Amanda is French, or lived in France, not sure which, but she doesn't really have an accent. She speaks French to Peggy frequently. She wants her to know the language. Makes sense. Honestly, when I was a freshman, I wanted to take French instead of Spanish, but my dad insisted Luke and I both take Spanish because we'd use it more. So I had Spanish freshman and sophomore year. Amanda and Peggy do this thing. It irritates me so much. Whenever we're all having a conversation at dinner or whatever, Amanda will randomly start speaking French to Peggy. It's like she's cutting all of us out of the conversation. We basically all have to wait for them to finish because my dad ignores us till they're done. One time, we were trying to pick a movie to watch. We were all talking about our choices. Then Amanda and Peggy had a conversation in French, and Amanda told my dad what they wanted to watch. So we watched that. Point is, it's not just them talking amongst themselves or Amanda telling Peggy to do her homework or something. Luke and I have talked to my dad, and he said they're not that bad. We said they were, and it's annoying. I think Amanda does it because we don't speak French. He said, well, if you want to know what they're saying, learn French. I said, no, I already have my foreign language requirement to graduate. He said, it never hurts to learn another, and they're going to be around for a while. Sure, Jan. My dad only speaks English for the record, so anyway, Luke knows some Spanish. Yesterday at dinner, Amanda and Peggy were doing their BS. When they got done, I looked at Luke and started saying random stuff. Pero gato y tú? Complete gibberish, but he's only a few weeks in Spanish. 1. I wanted him to get the hint. He did, and he said, sí, más verde, and kind of laughed. My mom asked what we were doing. I said, oh, I'm just speaking Spanish to my brother, so he'll remember it. When my dad was driving us home, he lectured us, me, and said I was making fun of Amanda and it was rude, that she's genuinely helping Peggy remember French, and we mocked her. I said, I don't care that she speaks French, but she doesn't have to do it mid-conversation with us. If she doesn't want it done to her, she shouldn't do it. He said I was being immature and he expects me to apologize to them. She does this constantly, and Dad just thinks we're supposed to sit and wait for them. AITA? NTA. When you're in a group setting, it's common decency to include everyone in the conversation and not have side conversations in another language that everyone else at the table doesn't understand. If they want to practice their French, they can do it when you're not there. It's rude to talk in front of you knowing you don't understand. And your dad is TA for not standing up to his newest woman and telling her she can't talk in French when sharing a meal with you and your brother. NTA, I live and work in a very multilingual environment, and I know that it is extremely bad manners to cut someone out of a conversation by deliberately speaking in a language they don't understand. This is especially true when there is a common language understood by everyone present, which could be used instead. If there is not, then translations are given by someone who is able to. If Amanda wants to help Peggy with French, it should be done when there are no non-French speakers present. As for you retaliating by speaking Spanish, fully justified a-holery to prove the point. I will bet my last $10 they were talking shit about y'all in French. Definitely NTA. It's good to pay it back the same treatment you all were getting from them. Screw them. Keep speaking Spanish till they feel they're feeling left out or offensive. On the other hand, I will be speaking in sign language fluency, and you all will definitely be feeling left out. I, 27 female, will be a mother in 3 months. My sister Lily had my niece 20 days ago. I'm a little terrified of motherhood. I want to be a mother, to be clear, but the idea of a small human being is dependent on me and so fragile. My heart panics, I guess. My biggest fear is bathing a newborn, not knowing how to properly hold it, even more because of its neck. Yes, I took classes, read books, watched videos, but I don't have any practice with newborn babies. And in practice, it can be different. I've had this in my head for a few days now, and I thought maybe I could ask my sister if I could give my niece a bath to see how it goes. And to my surprise, she agreed. I made it very clear that she could refuse if she found this request very strange, but she thought my attempt to learn was cute. On Monday, I gave her a bath. Lily stayed by my side, guiding, and nothing happened. We took photos, and I loved this moment, and my niece loved it. I was at her house when my brother-in-law arrived, and my sister excitedly told him that I had bathed Lily for the first time, and he looked annoyed. He asked why didn't she tell him, why I bathed her, and if Lily didn't think it was weird that I bathed. My mother and Lily's mother-in-law already bathed her, and I thought it was weird, so I just asked, is it me? It was very clear that I was pointing out the fact that I am a lesbian. He cut it off by saying no. He just thought it was weird that I used other people's children to train my daughter. The mood took a toll, and my sister changed the subject. I left soon after, too. My sister said she didn't think it was weird, and she took great pictures to see two people she loves having this cute moment. But when talking to my mother, she said that she understood my brother-in-law's side and that it was strange for me to do this with other people's children. So I'm lost. AITA? NTA, I actually think that's very smart of you to ask for some lessons in baby care with someone close to you and an actual baby. You got some practice and you got some bonding time with your sister and niece. Brother-in-law is off base here. I mean, heaven forbid you need to watch your niece at some point and she needs a bath. This isn't other people's children. This is your niece. And your sister was right there. I see nothing wrong with this at all. NTA, the key word here is you asked to bathe your niece, and her mother consented, and you bathed her under the supervision of her mother. It would have been strange had you taken the child and done it without permission or supervision. Your mom and brother-in-law have some issues they need to sort out, it seems.